You're listening to Theater and College Hoops. I'm Subi. Alongside me is Taylor Dammel and the Shark. We're brought to you by Dash Radio and the Barn Burner Podcast Network. Go subscribe on whichever device you use. I actually heard Vander Blue, former shooting guard for Marquette, subscribe, so you should as well. Typically, I have a little nugget, a little anecdote about these players. I got nothing on Vander Blue, except he's got a fantastic name. But check out the website at thebarnburner.com. That's the-barnburner.com. And make sure to follow us on Twitter at CBB Theater. You should also follow me at Subi232 to find out where the Theat is. And make sure to follow Taylor at Taylor Dammel and the Shark at the_Shark_BB. We're sponsored by Blue Note, artfully crafted small batch bourbon, distilled in Memphis and honoring the Memphis Blues. Be noteworthy, Memphis. So I got my tree. Got my Christmas tree ready, and it's a little Charlie Brown type tree. It's decorated. It's ready to go. How about you guys? You guys set up your tree yet? Decorated?
I've had my tree up for like 2 weeks now.
Made the decision, no tree, because we're leaving a week before the holidays. So we aren't even going to put it up just to take it down before we leave, because we're not coming back to after the new year. So the tree's up for nobody at that point.
Maybe like some garland or something.
Yeah. We did some of that. We took care of that yesterday during Sunday. But yeah, we're not completely atheists over here, but didn't want to. And plus, we got one of these trees. It's a fake tree, so it comes in that long box, which means I'm going into the box every year. Then I'm stuffing it in the closet. I'm just avoiding that whole thing.
Well, I can't really avoid the whole thing because I grew up in North Pole, Alaska, so I would probably be disowned by my entire town if I didn't do some type of spread some Christmas-like cheer when given the opportunity. So it's almost like a necessity. I can't get away from it.
Yeah, let me ask you that actually, Taylor. What's like the non-Christian population in North Pole, Alaska? Like if the Subramanians were to have grown up in North Pole, Alaska, would I just be a recluse? Like, or would I just have to celebrate Christmas?
You might be able to find like a handful of Hindu people in Fairbanks, but at North Pole, things are pretty what's the word I'm looking for? Snow White out there, I guess, baby. We got some Mormons that are stuck in there. Not a lot of Jews. The only brown people we got are Native Alaskans for the most part. So,
well, what about all those kind of, just to steal Subi's word and pronounce it differently, kind of a tournament type thing, but recluses up there, like Liam Neeson from The Grey, where he just gets up there and hunts wolves? I feel like those guys probably aren't too deep into religion and celebrating holidays.
Oh yeah, no, they're out in their cabins like by themselves. Yeah.
Honestly,
hunting. Yeah.
I know I intentionally brought that up by myself, but probably one of the best movies of this century.
What was it called again?
The Grey.
Oh, The Grey.
Yeah.
I never.
More into the fray. You haven't seen that, dude? You're from Alaska. You haven't seen The Grey with Liam?
I lived it. All right. Who is that kicker? Who was that kicker a couple of years ago? Yeah, he's like, I don't play video games. This is real life, bro. Yeah. I don't laugh or whatever that was. Yeah, right. Like, I don't need to watch movies about Alaska. Like, I live that shit, okay?
Yeah, but it's not just about Alaska. It's about survival. It's about acceptance. Come on, man. Give that movie a shot.
It's more of me just not being a movie guy than the quality of the movie itself. So I'm assuming from what I know about that movie, there are a number of people in Alaska who would fit that role pretty well.
Well, speaking of theater, I'm locked in on the Arizona Baylor game in Waco, right? In an absolute dogfight, top 20 matchup between two very good teams. I just get looped into a group conversation there with the Shark and the Chief, asking about what are some good films to watch before award show season starts. And if you know me, you know that I do love award show season. We got the Oscars, Emmys, Globes, all that good stuff coming up. But it's not necessarily for the film. It's more so for the outlandish public acceptance speeches and things of that nature. But I'm sitting at the bar, scrapping, clawing for any sort of win against Scott Drew. And I'm talking Knives Out here.
Well, I'm trying to express you a courtesy here. I'm trying to be nice. You and I both know that for as long as we've been around, when we get close to awards show season, which we put the Oscars at the very top, we like to do our research. So yes, I sent you a text and I looped in the Chief because he's a big movie guy. He loves movies. He goes to movies by himself. He goes to these screenings, often these indie theaters in Memphis somewhere. He does all that stuff. So I sent him a text looping you in saying, hey, Chief, give me some movies to see. I got to educate myself. I got to culture myself before the award show come out. I'm sorry that we're not supposed to talk to you during your horrible, boring 12 p.m. game that is my third option on a commercial channel while Ohio State is playing Wisconsin. Actually, no, it wasn't Ohio State. It was freaking Baylor, Oklahoma at the time. While that's going on, and then you have a better option on Fox with Florida and Butler. And all of a sudden, I'm supposed to be concerned about your feelings as your team's down by 16 in the first half and you got 20 points. I mean,
just do me the courtessy of leaving
That's
me
a
out.
text.
Then loop me in. Loop me in afterwards.
I'm not asking you out for a cup of coffee. I'm sending you a text. You can look at it later.
Hold on.
I just don't think that you were in the rabbit hole with me. I'm trying. There's a level of seriousness to a top 25 matchup on the road, and I got to talk about. What are some other movies outside of Knives Out? We're talking about isn't there like a new Star Wars or something going on too?
I don't know. Can you come in close? I want to tell you something. All right? I want to tell you this right now. I'm never going to be in that rabbit hole with you. All right. I have no interest in that rabbit hole. I'm not going there.
Sue, at what point in the game did you receive this text?
It might have been towards the end of the first half where Arizona really, really sucked.
I feel like it was a perfect storm. I could just feel it from our text back and forth that you were perturbed a little more than normal. And maybe that was the straw that broke the Subramanian's back on that one, was the group chat of movies in the middle of this awful game.
It's a total lack of respect. I was also pretty drunk. I had a few craft beers, and I was sitting next to an Arizona guy.
It's 11 a.m. over there. Come on.
It's Saturday.
Exactly.
It's a college football, college basketball Saturday. When are you supposed to start? What's a good time to
The
start?
holidays as
No,
well.
you don't need to be lashing out via text before high noon. It's not even high noon, and you're already lashing out at me.
Serious. I take this shit serious,
I
dog.
know
That's
you
why
do.
you don't. That's why you know what? We don't want you in the rabbit hole.
Actually,
we don't want you in the fight. You're not fit for this foxhole.
I'm not going into that rabbit hole, but I actually got we got the Where Am I segment that we came up with on the spot. I think we got another one right here as I'm thinking it, because you told me this probably like 10 years ago when the Redskins were in their pit of misery and everything was falling apart in my sports world. And you looked at me.
Has that changed?
Well, no, it hasn't. It hasn't.
Okay.
This thing that Scooby said to me a long time ago, it still rings true. He looked at me and he said, "Who hurt you?" So I think we can use that for anyone right now who has an outrageous reaction or is overly sensitive or anything in the college basketball world. Just ask them, who hurt you? That could be a segment for next week.
Yeah, well, I mean, it could very well be Arizona week in and week out because they've done that now for about 10 years. And we talked about who hurt you. You posed that question to me as well in 2014 when I just had it out against George Niang and that Iowa State team. Those were your boys. And then you finally came to the realization that it was Subramanian.
Wow.
One of the greatest Texas of all time.
Incredible exchange.
I love that we don't really have any type of pre-production meeting. We just kind of just come up with new segments on the fly here, pretty much. Like, hey, you know what we should do, guys? Here, I got an idea. Let's not fur this out. Let's just dive right into it.
Pretty much as long as they start with the 5 W's. What is it? Who, what, when, where, why? We got where. Now we got who. We'll keep this momentum rolling. But we do have a great show ahead as we have good friends of the program, the Providence Crier. And actually, let me pause real quick because we did talk about the Chief and his love for movies. Shameless plug. Listen to his podcast on the Barn Burner Podcast Network. It's called In the Can. Some great theater talk. But the show upcoming, we got the Providence Crier and Justin Hasgard back on to discuss URI's victory over Providence College on Friday in the Ryan Center. Not looking great for the Friars as they are now 500, 10 games into the season. I don't think even the most pessimistic Friar fan would have ever thought that they would be only 500 this far into the season. And really the only thing that I can think about and that I plan on asking, especially the Crier, is do you think there's any regret from Ed Cooley that he didn't go to Michigan over this past summer? What I'm thinking to myself is there's got to be a slight piece of him deep down in places he doesn't talk about that's saying, fuck, maybe I should have gone to Ann Arbor. Maybe I should have hitched my wagon to Xavier Simpson as opposed to LeWan Pipkins. And I'd be enjoying potentially a top 5, top 10 team. Now, that's not to discredit what Juwan Howard's been doing, but this has just been an abysmal start for the Friars. I'm also going to touch on the Crier prophecy, which apparently was Final Four. We murdered that like 2 weeks ago, but it's even further in the ground now. But my thought is there's a very small piece of Cooley that is regretting not going to Michigan. Taylor, I'll start with you. Do you think he regrets that decision at all?
Yeah, I don't think that I don't think it's like at the forefront of his mind, but you got to sit there in the depths of night when you can't sleep and be like, what if? Everybody what ifs to some degree, and rarely can you what if, what if I would have gone to like one of the top 15 jobs in the country, 20, I don't know, somewhere in that range. And now I'm sitting here at 5-5. And so that's the problem with college basketball, especially compared to other sports, even compared to other sports, I should say. You have to strike while the iron is hot, right? You don't just always have the opportunity to move up in your field in college basketball, because rarely do the really, really big jobs in college basketball come along and open up. So betting on yourself is one thing, but even look, let's take college football, for example. Even Chris Peterson, who was in the news recently because he just resigned from Washington, even he at one point realized that he needed to get out of Boise State if he was ever going to reach a higher echelon, right? And it's kind of the same thing with Providence. Providence is a good basketball program, but Providence isn't going to win the national championship. They're just not. I mean, because look, the prophecy said Final Four this year, and they're 5-5. So, could Michigan win a championship? Yeah, almost virtually in a year would they be able to attract enough talent. So it's tough to turn it down a job like that, and then even tougher and more, I would say, impossible to not think about it if you turn down a job like that and they're having a surprise great season, ranked in the top. Are they still top 5? Top five. Yeah, they're number 5. And Providence is, I mean, they're not even going to make it. As it currently stands, they're not even going to make the turn. They're not even going to sniff the tournament.
Yeah, it's funny. Last week you had mentioned that if there's one team that is for sure that might have the best resume going into the tournament, let's say if the season just miraculously ended today, it's Michigan. Despite the fact that they weren't the number 1 overall seed, you could make the case that Michigan is for sure in the tournament. On the flip side of that, I think out of the teams that we had expectations for, Providence is on the other end of that spectrum where you're like, they're for sure out. They only can afford to lose maybe 6 more times all year.
Otherwise less than that in that conference. Even getting in
with 11, 12 wins or losses, maybe as a bubble team. But Shark, is there any thought running through Ed Cooley's mind, who again, it's been said ad nauseum, he's a Providence guy. He actually might be your boy, former BC guy. Is there any thoughts, do you think, running through his mind about not taking that job in Ann Arbor?
Absolutely. I mean, with Kenny Rogers, you gotta know when to hold him, know when to fold him. And in this case, he did not get out when he should have got out, because he had the upward trajectory for a long time in Providence. He reached kind of the apex there without the tournament success, and he should have known right then and there, now is the time to get and go. And right now, as it stands, he's sitting in the Big East. And if you look at the other coaches in that conference, and I actually want you to ask this question of Board when you have him on. You can bring in Scart as well, but ask him, who do you think, where does Ed Cooley stack up amongst the other coaches in the Big East? I think he's probably like number 5 or so at this point, if not below that. And going into the season, or even last year, a lot of people would have said he's without a doubt top 3 head coach. But when you look at the Big East right now, obviously you're going to have Jay Wright, you're going to have Laval Jordan, who's just a star at Butler. No matter who you put in there at Butler, they're going to be good. Travis Steele seems to be great at Xavier. Wojo, he's probably getting close there with Ed Cooley, which is kind of insulting to Cooley that he's even close to Wojo at this point. And then I feel like I'm missing
McDermott.
I'm forgetting the greatest coach of all time, my boy.
I was waiting.
My boy, Kevin Willard, who is without a doubt better than Ed Cooley. And more on Kevin Willard later. Do I get to give a hug on this show?
We're all giving hugs. Oh yeah.
All right, yeah. More on that later.
Don't give it away or anything.
Yeah, but Cooley, it's like, damn, dude, like you're the last one at this party. You should have left a while ago. You should look cool, but you're still here, dude. Get out.
Yeah. Is he like the 20-year-old, still 22-year-old, still coming to a lot of the high school basketball games?
Yeah, he just missed his window.
Yeah. Because it's a slippery slope, because one bad season, again, if you're not at a named school, a bad season can easily affect your next recruiting classes, which could snowball into several bad years, and then all of a sudden you get fired. And I'm not saying that the first 10 games of the year is the end-all be-all of Ed Cooley's career, but we've seen this happen time and time before, where a guy doesn't capitalize on his success, has a bad season or two, and then gets dropped off the face of the earth, never to be seen again. Who's someone that comes to mind like that? Anthony Grant?
Ben Howland.
Yeah, right. Ben Howland. But he was already at UCLA though. But yeah,
I would even say that Anthony Grant's had himself a nice little resurrection.
Yeah, well, maybe so. And it's not that Ed Cooley wouldn't get hired again somewhere, because he certainly would. But it would be kind of like Rich Rod coming back to coach at Arizona. You got to start back at the bottom and then try and build yourself all the way back up. And it's really hard to build yourself up from the bottom again a second time when you're already known as someone who didn't quite meet expectations or live up to the prophecy, so to speak, at your previous location.
Well, that was an absolutely absurd prophecy. We'd said that prophecy was terrible at the beginning, but
that Anthony Grant comparison is just horrifying. Like, someone should tell that to Ed Cooley, be like, dude, you could turn into Anthony Grant here. That career path, I wouldn't wish that on anyone right there. Good poll there, Taylor.
I know. I was just trying to think, is that the best one off the top of my head? I could probably find a better example, but it might be it. Someone who got to a big enough school, but didn't go to the bigger step of the school. No. Probably, yeah, right.
I mean,
that's good.
Could you make the argument for Shaka as well? It's not like he's irrelevant, but he hasn't done shit at Texas, and he's red hot.
But he got to Texas.
Sure.
The point would be getting to that school, and even though Texas isn't an A1 basketball program, it is still a big name school. Cooley stopped short at VCU. Essentially, it was Shaka not leaving VCU.
Right. And I would even say that Shaka didn't even leave at his apex. I think he had a year or two.
Correct.
Afterwards.
Yeah. And they still did they miss the tournament? Make the tournament the next 2 years?
It wasn't the Final Four runs like he had been to, but yeah, I mean, you're right. He did make it to Texas, but even in Shaka's case, he might have been able to get an even higher tier job than Texas. But yeah, Ed Cooley, if you remember, over the summer, essentially spurned to Michigan and said he wanted to stay in Providence. He's got to have some second thoughts. Speaking of Michigan, they hosted Iowa after losing to Louisville. We said this was going to be a big game for the Wolverines because Iowa is a good team, and you're coming off of that loss. But the big story from this game was Luka Garza. Now, we have Anthony Davis, who's the brow, and I've already given Obi Toppin a nickname, so I'm going to give Luka Garza a nickname, and it's not that creative. We can continue to workshop, but I'm going to call him the eyebrows. Anthony Davis is the brow. I'm calling Luka the eyebrows because he's just got two caterpillars, but the boy can play. He dropped 44 against Michigan on the road, not enough as they did end up losing. Shark, that's your boy. That's your previous place of employment, Garza. Tell me about Luka Garza.
All I know is really all I can tell about it. When they played Tennessee last year in the tournament, I was never more terrified of someone touching the ball than Luka Garza. He's one of those guys you can dump it to him on the post and automatic. He's going to get two or get fouled every single time. It's just a matter of if his body's going to fall apart, if he gets in foul trouble during the game, or if he just, somehow doesn't get a lot of and ones. You can only contain him. I think he got 44 on Friday night. The guy was all over the place. He's definitely has a NBA future, and I think until you face him, your team faces him, you don't really recognize how much of a talent he is, especially offensively. And his dad's one of those dads that they always show on TV during the game as well. So you got that going.
Can I tell you what Luka Garza's childhood nickname was?
Please.
Pudge.
Like in reference to
as in Rodriguez. No, it's because I guess he was like a fat kid.
I mean,
that's from an art. That's not my words. These are article from a literal USA Today article. His nickname was Pudge.
He definitely looks like a former fat kid.
So, in my estimation, and tell me if I'm wrong, and this might be my only beef with the AP poll this week, because I actually thought the AP poll was pretty decent. Iowa didn't even receive votes.
That's crazy.
So is Iowa right? Let me find in page. Yeah, no Iowa. Is Iowa the most underrated team by a mile in the country right now?
They might be. I mean, I would not want to face those guys in a tournament just because of how they can score. I know Michigan kind of ran them out on Friday night, but they
only lost by 12. Here they're lost.
But they were getting killed for that entire.
Sure. So they have wins over Syracuse, albeit Syracuse isn't awesome. They beat Texas Tech, good win. Their only losses on the year are to undefeated DePaul, undefeated San Diego State, and one loss Michigan. This team doesn't get one vote, and we got a team that loses to Evansville in the top 10, but Iowa can't even get a vote, and their 3 losses are to teams with a combined 1 loss on the year.
Yeah, I think Iowa could be the most underrated team, and I guess it just depends on how you want to define underrated. Like, is it anyone who's getting national attention, who isn't getting national attention, I should say. I could also make the case potentially for Maryland. As a top 3 team, they're not getting as much pub as even some of their Big Ten counterparts, including Iowa. But Iowa seems like a team that come conference tournament time could just go on a run and win the conference title and propel themselves from, let's say, like a 6 seed to like a 4 or 3 seed after going on an incredible Big Ten title run. That's the type of team I see with the Hawkeyes.
They are that type of team. Their problem is they just don't play any defense. I mean, we're talking like it's just Luka Garza on the team. They still have Fran McCaffrey's kid. He's on that team. They got another one of those shooters. They got to shoot. Everyone's a shooter on that team, but they can't defend anyone. That's the issue with them. So they can definitely catch lightning in a bottle. It's just a matter of, are they going to be able to hold up in a 40 minutes against Ohio State and Michigan State and Wisconsin like that. So
take let's look at another Big Ten school and just compare them. Okay, so my boys, the Pain Squad, Purdue, obviously monster win over Virginia this week, right? But they also have 2 probably worse losses than Iowa does, and Purdue, and they have the same exact record. Purdue is essentially sitting at 27th, and Iowa can't get a vote. And like another underrated team right now is DePaul, undefeated DePaul, right in your backyard, Subi. Only 1 vote in this week's.
Well, they lost.
25.
DePaul lost last night.
Oh, they did, didn't they? Yeah, you're right. Excuse me. That's true. My bad. I'll take that one. That's on me.
I do feel like some of the voters though, for especially basketball, when they don't like a head coach, they probably take it out on that team. I feel like you're very polarized with Fran McCaffrey. You either love him or you hate him. I think I love Fran McCaffrey because of how ridiculous he can be on the sidelines and impressors. But I know that he doesn't have the most glowing reputation because honestly, he can be a very surly, miserable fuck at times. Like we have a friend in our group who is such a miserable fuck. That is I feel like every friend group has that. It's just so miserable. That is Fran McCaffrey in the coaching world.
Fran McCaffrey is like the picture perfect representation of just like a crazy, angry Irish Catholic fuck that just hates his life and everything about it. That's Fran McCaffrey. He played like a perfect, if you got a movie from the taking place in Ireland or something, like some angry priest that's abusive of the good guy in the movie, that's Fran McCaffrey. Just the guy in Gangs of New York. He'd be like the guy in the guy with the
Bill the Butcher?
No, not Bill the Butcher. The guy that runs for mayor that gets killed by Bill the Butcher.
Oh, he's
just some Irish guy that can beat people up all the time. That's Fran McCaffrey.
Oh, is he the barber?
Yeah, the barber.
Yeah.
Would you say that Fran McCaffrey is the Kirk Ferentz of college basketball?
No,
in terms of results,
it's too boring. Yeah. No,
are we doing results?
From results? Excuse me.
Fran McCaffrey's either gonna light you up or he's gonna get blown out. Kirk Ferentz is gonna get the same thing every single game. He's gonna win 6 or 7 games. Fran McCaffrey, and plus he's a hothead. He's a lunatic on the court. Ferentz is just standing still.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say that like Iowa has the same ceiling and same floor in both the basketball and football like every single year?
No chance. Iowa could go to the Elite Eight this year.
Yeah.
Didn't Iowa just go to the college football playoff like 2 years ago? Or right?
No,
Didn't
they were in the conversation, I think.
No,
they went to the Big Ten title game.
They got blown out
by Michigan State. Yeah.
Right, but isn't that akin to the Elite Eight? Give or take.
They play on the easy side of the Big Ten, so they could technically go every year.
It's still the championship game, though. I'm saying they got to be the most like even basketball and football team or programs in the country, right?
I don't know. I got to agree with Shark here. I think their basketball team is far more volatile, actually. And maybe this year they're good, but they've stunk some years as well. And yeah, in terms of personality, actually, you could be hard pressed to find football coach and a basketball coach at the same school with more opposite personality.
I'm saying the performance of the programs, not the personality of those in the lead of the programs.
So, quick trivia question for you. I'm going to say to Taylor because this is the answer to this is a player from Arizona. But do you know who the last person to have at least 40 against Michigan was? Shark, you can try answering this as well if you know it, but
I stopped paying attention as soon as you directed the question to him.
Khalid Reeves.
Bingo! Wow.
Boom. Let's go.
Did you just pull that out of your ass, or was there some sort of thought process to that?
Well, I knew we probably hadn't played Michigan since the early '90s. Was probably my only thought, and he was probably Arizona's most prolific scorer of the early '90s.
That's incredible. Great guess. It was Khalid Reeves. All right.
Well, excuse me. We did play Michigan when we had like Rondé Hall, Jefferson, Aaron Gordon, those guys. But I know no one on that team scored close to 40 points. So yeah.
All right. Let's move on to North Carolina. They're struggling right now. Lost 3 out of 4, albeit to top 3 of the top 5 teams. They've lost to Michigan. They lost to Ohio State, and they have also lost to University of Virginia. They haven't looked good in any of those games, but especially Ohio State at home, I think was like the worst loss, the second worst loss in the Dean Dome ever. They got completely waxed by the Buckeyes, and then they go to Charlottesville and throw up another stinker. I said this last week. I don't think North Carolina is very good at all. They have a incredible player in Cole Anthony who can explode on you, but as a team, it kind of reminds me a little bit of that Trae Young Oklahoma team. Like Trae Young was amazing, and you see what he's doing now in the NBA, but they ended up losing in the first round of Rhode Island in overtime. And they started out hot, and then they had a terrible stretch of games. That's just kind of the vibe I get from this North Carolina team, because it is easy to say that they've lost to very good teams in Michigan, Ohio State, and UVA, but they haven't looked particularly good in any of those 3. Taylor, do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I would agree. It was the largest home loss since 2002, and the largest home loss for Uncle Roy there as a North Carolina coach. It's weird. The weird part of that about this team is not necessarily that their performances are bad. It's how bad their offense is. Their offense is atrocious. And it's one thing North Carolina, as we've always known, we've had the discussion many times before, that generally schools are what they are. No matter who comes in, who comes out, whatever. North Carolina has always been a fast-paced, run-and-gun, get up and down the court type of team. They didn't even score 50 points in either of their last 2 games. And I would really, that's a good trivia question, actually, is when was the last time North Carolina went 2 straight games without breaking the 50-point marker? Now, against Virginia, we understand that that's just how it goes against Virginia, and it's not even necessarily a skill thing. It's more of a pace of play. It's hard to score more points in such a short, a few amount of opportunities. But I think the bigger indication is how badly they got smoked by Ohio State. I mean, that was just a full-on dominant second half by Ohio State. Something that we had talked about last week is Ohio State maybe having a real shot at being the number 1 team in the country. And that really put the exclamation point on that thought for me. Was not that North Carolina is so good, but I mean, just the dominant way that Ohio State won that game. I'm not sure it's going to it'll get better for North Carolina. Their only real tough game coming up for the next, month and a half is Gonzaga. And that's on the 18th of December. But they run off a stretch of, Wofford, actually, they're sneaky. But UCLA, Yale, Georgia Tech, Pitt, Clemson, Pitt, Virginia Tech, Miami, North Carolina State, BC, until they get another ranked team, not until February 3rd at Florida State. So if there's a time to right the ship, now's it. If they don't go, I don't know how many games that was, let's call that 10 games. If they don't go like 9-1 in that stretch, then I think there's a monster problem. 8-2. If they go anything less than that, then they really do have some problems that probably aren't just going to be fixed in the last month and a half of the season.
Well, it's interesting to see the rivals now kind of going in opposite directions. You see Duke surging after that win over Michigan State, and now Carolina kind of having the bottom fall out in this early part of the season. Shark, is there any reason for concern in Chapel Hill in your eyes?
Yes, definitely. I think the Trae Young comparison is a very good one. I was also watching that game. First of all, you guys were right. You picked Ohio State. I picked North Carolina. I was wrong. Good pick. Happy for you. For you. Good. It reminds me a little bit of Cole Anthony, of Ben Simmons when he was on LSU too, where it seems like there's no desire to make anyone else on the court better. It's just all about making himself look great. And this is way too premature to be calling this out on Cole Anthony right now, but the rest of that team looks terrible on North Carolina. Just guys that I can't fathom how Roy Williams ever would have offered them a scholarship. And that makes me wonder, well, he probably offered them a scholarship for a reason. So why did they look so bad? And why they look so bad is probably because Cole Anthony is not doing his job to facilitate, get everyone else involved. And that's why they're struggling so much. So that's where you get the Trae Young, and that's obviously the Ben Simmons LSU team. They didn't even make the tournament. So we could definitely see that happening here with North Carolina. I think with respect to their schedule, they'll churn out wins. But, when I look at Taylor, you look at you're talking about the ACC standings right now. You got 3 juggernauts that are all 2-0 already in the ACC. You got Louisville, who obviously is number 1 in the nation. You got UVA, who just beat North Carolina. And then you have Boston College, who's also 2-0 at the top of the ACC. So that's going to be a tough one for North Carolina as well.
Yeah, didn't even talk about Florida State or Duke there either. Just those 3 juggernauts. I love that you're able to put them in with a straight face.
The 5-5 BC Golden Eagles.
Just
ACC.
Just Eagles.
Oh, are they just Eagles?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Say Marquette.
We're not flashy, just
Eagles. The Eagles with the gold helmet. Yeah. All right. Sorry. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think old Roy needs to do some coaching here in this next month and a half for them to have any sort of confidence as they enter and progress through ACC play. Another game we had referenced at the top of this program, Arizona loses at Baylor. And I was a little perturbed, Taylor, yes. But this is why I'm not exactly sold on them yet. And I told Shark before I start two-stepping, they're going to need to beat Baylor on the road. They're going to need to beat Gonzaga at home. If they beat Gonzaga at home, I'll still be pretty happy. I mean, you can't be unhappy with a top 6 win at home. But that game against Baylor, they didn't look prepared for the first 3 quarters of the game. And then they decided to turn it on towards the end and make it a competitive scoreline. But in their first true road test against a top 25 team, they didn't look particularly good for 3 quarters of the game. And I can actually attribute some of that to maybe illness. Nico was out earlier this week with a bad back. Josh Green apparently was hanging out with Sam Darnold and had mono or some shit.
He had strep throat.
Whatever.
Yeah.
He was doing something. But Arizona losing at Baylor, I wanted to jump on the bandwagon so bad. I think it's just going to take a little bit more time now. I think I need to add an additional benchmark, maybe beating Oregon, beating Washington, in addition to Gonzaga, and then I'll be back. But as it stands right now, I don't think I've moved in either direction on Arizona. Did this game tell you anything about either team, Arizona or Baylor?
No. I think that what it told me more is that every single team in college basketball, especially West Coast teams, this is more of a West Coast situation than it is an East Coast. There's always a game every year that every West Coast school has to travel like 1,000 miles and then play like the earliest game of the day, and then they don't wake up for the first 10 minutes. And I don't have actual facts to back that up other than my eyes tell me this. Every single year we always turn on that early game and go, oh, wow, we can tell who the road team is here because they didn't wake up until about 10 minutes into the game. And that happens all year, every year. That first game on CBS or ESPN every morning, there's one team that isn't awake yet. And I'm not saying that's an excuse. I'm just saying that if that's your first true road test of the year, I don't necessarily attribute that to being ill-prepared or anything, or just not good. I think it's more of an anomaly than anything else. Arizona came in as the 6th best shooting team in the country and 8th best 3-point shooting team in the country and shot 27% from the field and 2 of 18 from 3. Are we going to use one game to say that's indicative of their entire season? I would say no. I would say it's more of just a true road game situation. It didn't really tell me that much about Baylor though either. because Baylor.
Yeah, they didn't look that good either.
Baylor should, if given the other team was on the road and struggling like that, Baylor should have smoked Arizona, and they shot an almost as bad 30% from the field. So literally like 2 more shots went in, and they won by 5. I think the only other thing that I would be upset about as an Arizona fan is this team is not an overly tough team. They're a little soft. And it's not that the freshmen are soft, because I don't blame someone like Christian Coloco playing his first 11 minutes on the road and only like the 5th game has appeared in this year. I don't blame him for not playing all that well. And he didn't play all that badly, really. Who I do blame is someone like 5th-year senior Chase Jeter, who is the softest 7-footer in the history of college basketball. I've never seen a more hesitant big man around the rim than Chase Jeter. He just sits there with the ball, doesn't dunk it, and if he takes the ball, he gets the ball, receives it above his head, and if he takes it below his fucking knees one more time in the post, when he should just go up and lay it in or dunk it, I'm going to throw my TV out the window, because there's nothing more frustrating than watching this big oaf, soft motherfucker down low dropping the ball to his knees every goddamn time he gets it down low.
Yeah, I had a rant last week. I don't know if it holds a candle to what you just gave us just now. And big man is a general term. I want to specify that Chase Jeter's 7 feet. He was very frustrating this past game. And again, Chase Jeter has a game in the books where he didn't record one single rebound as a 7-footer. Chase is going to be integral. And I feel like this was buyer beware for Arizona, and maybe having a little remorse after, you say, oh, he was good enough for Duke. And I think the best thing he ever did at Duke was that little water bottle flip when that was all the rage during Midnight Madness. I think also the most embarrassing part of that game in Waco was we got sweaty Sean back. I think we're like 0-3 when he sweats like an absolute wildebeest. Everyone knows the viral image of him against Wichita State in that tournament game. He was nipple sweating. He was underbelly sweat. He was belly button sweating. Everything was just a sweatshop right there.
So let me get Shark's thoughts here, but I want to lead into something because this is going to be about his boy. Subi, you were at a bar. Thank God. ESPN put together what, in my estimation, was the worst college basketball broadcast I've ever been a part of in my whole life. There were audio issues. The score line didn't work. They switched off the game with 90 seconds left in a 1-possession game to like the next game on the schedule, which was
BC.
Yeah, right. The juggernaut.
Goddamn Shark.
BC. And,
big road win.
And Jimmy Dykes was the angriest I've ever heard and creepiest I've ever heard a single college basketball announcer. I mean, the whole time, and you could go, there's some great Jimmy Dykes tweets out there right now. Because anytime anyone made a mistake, he was just like, nope, bench him. Nope. He dropped Nico Mannion from like a top 5 pick to like a borderline first-round pick in one game. He pretty much was straight up yelling at the Baylor guard. He would take a shot, and he'd be like, oh, God, just... And it's like, what the... Who hurt Jimmy Dykes, Shark?
So nobody hurt Jimmy Dykes. If anything, you guys need some more Jimmy Dykes in your life. I've had a long relationship with Jimmy, as he calls... Once the SEC season gets going, he calls SEC games all the times. And I think typically SEC teams are a little bit tougher than you little prissy Pac-12 ones out there. And you just got done talking about how soft your team was. Maybe you need a Jimmy Dykes-led call more often, because Jimmy is not going to hold back. He coached he was an announcer for a while, then he went out and became a head coach for Arkansas's women's basketball team for a little bit. So if he sounds like a coach on TV, a recent coach, that's why. But I love Jimmy Dykes. That's what you want in an announcer, someone who's kind of just honest and genuine and commenting exactly like you would be on your couch, but making it sound like a coach would.
I like Dykes too, actually. So I'm kind of glad that I didn't listen to that audio so that it would sully my opinion.
He brought up the cheerleaders a lot.
Yeah, he could be a horny guy. But.
Horny?
A lot. I know everything there is to know now about Baylor's cheerleaders. Who's going to the bowl game? Who is at the Big 12 that championship game? What their names are? Like it got a little weird there for a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll have to catch his next broadcast then. And of course, Gonzaga hosts Arizona hosts Gonzaga this upcoming Saturday in a monster tilt down there in Tucson. Last topic I want to discuss, Travis Steele, after beating arch rivals Cincinnati, takes his kid to the bar. I personally love that move. You gotta talk shop with some of the locals. You bring your kid, you expose him to what this rivalry is all about. Travis Steele it seems like the everyday man at Xavier. And again, it seems like what they're doing is continuing this trend of really good coaches at Xavier that are going to build programs. Thad Matta to Sean Miller to Chris Mack to now Travis Steele. I love the taking the kid to the bar move. Shark, any thoughts on that?
Love it too. I think we're kind of developing in Cincinnati over there in the crosstown shootout. Didn't they just used to fight on the floor after the games? Now it's just simple. Yeah. Let me just bring this little toddler into a bar. He's going to pay for everyone's drink. So it's nice that we're not having violence anymore, and rather just underage drinking exposure, I guess, to young children.
Xavier is a phenomenal example of how important it is to find a coach that matches the demographic that supports your fan base. Because if you look at, like you just said, the last 4 or 5 coaches for Xavier, they fit that program ideally. Midwestern, Ohio, tough dudes, just like no flash about them, and they just get it. It's I don't even know if you can quantify it.
It's exactly like Butler. Butler's the same thing.
And that's where
look at their previous coaches. They got freaking Brad Stevens in there, and then they had Chris Holtman, who's the head coach at Ohio State now, and now this guy Laval Jordan's going to do it next.
Well, and Travis Steele went to Butler.
Yeah, so he'll probably go over there afterwards. Yeah, so
yeah, right.
Schools, they're just factories. They're always competing. They always have great coaches. So Travis Steele apparently spent $1,000 in the bar, his son Winston spent $1,000 at the bar, but pretty damn cool. I would have loved to be at Gentle Ben's after a big Arizona win and Sean Miller come throw down a G on the Gentle Ben's counter on 2 for 1 night, double Jack and Cokes for everybody.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be cool to see the head coach. I'd kind of be weird seeing a kid next to him though. I'd be like, let's fucking go, coach. Good win. And then like, oh, sorry, little man.
No, he's not going to remember any of that, So
true. How blacked out do you think he was?
No harm, no foul. Who, the kid or Travis?
Kid. He's not remembering. Must have tipped a few back.
A lot of milk before that.
Najee Marshall's nasty for Travis Steele. That goes back.
Well, that's Travis Steele. That's our coach of the year right there, Taylor.
That's true. That's our boy.
All right, let's go ahead and get to this interview with Justin and the Providence Crier. But before we do that, a quick message from the guys at the Barn Burner Podcast Network. All right, we want to thank again Justin and Mike Surratt, aka the Providence Crier, for hopping on. Great interview and always good to shed light on the rivalry. Let's get into some segments and round out this show. It's my week now for Where Am I? And so my Where Am I is Connor Tehan. You guys remember Connor Tehan?
Yes. Yep.
Former guard for Kansas. Connor Tehan was the prototypical white guy that you play against who has like the shaggy, early famous Bieber haircut. Just, you don't think he's good at all, but he was actually a pretty solid contributor for those Jayhawks teams. Connor Tehan now is a wealth management advisor for Merrill Lynch in Kansas City. And so again, if we remember the rules and the criteria that the Shark had laid out, we want a guy that's a complete corporate slug. And I'm on his bio on his website. And some of these buzzwords are so perfect for Cube Monkey. And I quote, I'm skilled in weighing multiple factors that impact your wealth, your balance sheet, risk tolerance, family dynamics, personal priorities, long-term aspirations, and the changing fiscal conditions in which we live. With that analysis as my foundation, I work with you to chart a path forward that is distinctly your own, helping you deploy your wealth with forethought and care. I mean, if I didn't know any better, this guy's Ruben Pfeffer. This is exactly what Ruben Pfeffer in Along Came Polly would have. So Connor Tehan, where am I? A wealth management advisor for Merrill Lynch in Kansas City.
Beautiful. Shout out the interview that you, the Chief, and I did with John Hamburg, the director of Along Came Polly. And maybe we can reach out to him again and say we found our real world Along Came Polly minus the college basketball experience.
Incredible.
I mean, he fits the marketplace so well, and that's really, I think, my favorite part about this.
I'll tell you what, if I was a Jayhawks fan in the Kansas City area, I want my money in his hands. Based strictly on his profile picture, on his bio, what he's done for the community, what he did for the school, Connor Tien's my boy.
He probably runs downtown Kansas. You said Kansas City?
Yeah, he's in Kansas
He's
City.
probably on a god in that Power and Light district. I've been there once before. Very nice little district. He, big fish, small pond. The college star. God.
If he ever runs for any political office in Kansas City, I think we got to get him to first order of business, fix the airport.
God,
So to add to the Connor Tihan's supreme whiteness, I'm at the barbertihanwedding.com and their website for their wedding, him and his wife, and the engagement pictures and everything about this just couldn't be more supreme white than this is. Now I'm hoping as I roll down to their wedding party, if I can find some former.
All right, Jimmy Bikes, take it easy over there.
Wait, no. This Brady Morningstar was a groomsman.
Whoa.
Oh yeah, look who's entertained now. Okay.
That'd be a great. Where am I? Where the hell is Brady Morningstar?
Well, so here's the thing. I don't know now if I want to put my money in Tihan's hands because Tihan's hands. That's good.
Hey.
Because I'm pretty sure Brady Morningstar had a DUI. He's a bad example for the kids. Why are you so close with a man who's been arrested for a DUI?
Every one of his groomsmen looked like they could have been that particular white basketball player for Kansas. And they just have the right names, like Chase Buford, Matt Mormon, Justin Wesley. These are all just perfect KU white basketball, off the bench players.
Yeah. So shout out Connor Tihan. Thank you for providing us with a Where Am I? Shark, let's kick it off to you. It's hug time. Who are we giving our hug to?
So my hug, sorry. Actually, go back to me 1 second. I got to relocate to a different room.
Shark's got to relocate. Taylor, give us a hug.
So last night, or 2 nights ago, I should say, was Taylor University's 10th annual Silent Night tradition. If you don't know anything about Silent Night or Taylor University, I don't blame you, because it's a small NAIA school, and their big deal is on the Friday before finals, they stay quiet. They all dress up like it's Halloween or whatever. They go student section to the maximum with costumes and whatnot, and pack their little gym, and they're quiet the whole time. And then when the 10th point is scored of the game by Taylor University, they rush the court. And there's no real reason for this, or I don't think there's a charitable goal they're trying to hit or anything like that. But it's the 10th year of the Taylor University Silent Night, and I think it is, for such a small school, it brings some notoriety to a place we would never ever even think about talking about. So hug to Taylor University.
Shark, you all settled? You got us hug for us?
I'm settled. Sorry about that. This is a deep hug, all right, because this is kind of a nostalgia hug for me as well. This hug goes out to Seton Hall's Sandro Mamukelashvili. I can't say his name. The white guy that plays power forward with the blue T-shirt underneath the jersey broke his wrist. And the reason I said it's a nostalgia hug, Kevin Willard said he doesn't know how long he's going to be out for, but you got to expect it's going to be at least to the tournament time, at least. Which obviously we all know. I'm a big Seton Hall guy. I picked him to the Final Four this year. This changes things a little bit because he's significant. It's not easy to replace that. But the reason it's a nostalgia hug is because it happened against Iowa State. And Iowa State is a deep, deep resonating wound that I have when George Niang got hurt in that 2013 NCAA tournament, jeopardizing the run that I had there. So this hurts. And those two players are kind of similar. They both kind of look alike too. They got the shaved head with the beard, straggly beard. They got a similar game. It really, life can be poetic, huh?
I was gonna say, would you say that the wound has been reopened? The Niang wound?
It's it's just like a reminder. I got over the Niang wound, but now I see a guy that plays like him, looks like him, on a team that I love, go down like him. It's like, oh my gosh.
It's all right.
Maybe I need this hug.
Yeah. Well, my hug is also going to be for a player who's injured. Western Kentucky's Charles Bassey out for the rest of the year after suffering a tibial plateau fracture in their win over Arkansas. And so this sucks because last year he was the freshman of the year and the defensive player of the year in the Conference USA last year. He was a 5-star prospect coming out of high school. But the thing that makes this the most painful is that he had declared for the draft. And I think he was truly one of the very last guys approaching that deadline to come back to college. And so it just stinks whenever a guy who has NBA potential declares and then says, no, I want to continue working on my game, or I want to continue giving back to the school and playing for them. And then they get hurt not earning any money. And that's a completely different topic for a different day. But Charles Bassey, hug for you. And I also feel a little bit for Western Kentucky themselves as like if I were a Hilltopper fan, because they didn't get to see Mitchell Robinson, who was their previous huge recruit when he decommitted and instead decided to train for the NBA on his own. So if you were to tell a Hilltopper fan, we're going to get you 2 top 5 players or 5-star recruits, and you're pretty much only going to get 1 season out of them, it's gotta hurt a little bit. So hug for Western Kentucky's Charles Bassey.
I'm hugging them as well. I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to Connor Tehan for a moment.
Group hug.
Just to round out the Connor Tehan segment there, to echo Shark's thought, his wedding was in the Power and Light District, so you were spot on with your him running the Power and Light District there in Kansas City. Sorry, I had to go back to that. I apologize.
No, I think it just shows the versatility of this group right here.
Not a wedding we can't find, no matter what, I guess. So.
No, not at all. Thanks again for listening. We will see you next time on Theater and College Hoops. Enjoy the rest of the games.